Hello, and welcome to today's event featuring Marshall Shore. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and approximately 900,000 right here in Arizona, we work to strengthen our communities and we advocate for what matters most to our families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. During the month of March, we will focus on managing debt, maximizing savings, and increasing retirement. AARP can help you make sure your money lives as long as you do by helping you save money, pay down debt, and maximize benefits. We have the resources, expert content, and tools for consumers to manage debt and deal with unexpected expenses. We also have resources to help you plan for retirement and ideas to help increase your short and long-term savings. Visit us at aarp.org/money tools to learn more. Thank you again, and with that, I will turn it over to Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy you can join us tonight for March 9th. Oh my gosh, so much good stuff is going to be going on tonight. Just wait and see. We've got all kinds of cool bits and stories. And so I'm so happy you can join us. So today being March 9th, now I know, oh, look, I see lots of folks have found the chat. So please keep on chatting. And so that way we know if there's any questions out there. Now, we'll go into a little bit more detail later on, but today is March 9th of 2023. The Ides of March have hit. Oh my gosh. So on this date, back in 1864, the first issue of the Arizona Miner, which was published at Fort Whipple by Richard McCormick, who was then the Secretary of State for the Territory of Arizona. So it was one of the early papers. Now, it is also National Kidney Day. That is to raise awareness of the importance of our kidneys and their overall health, and to try and reduce the impact of kidney disease amongst us all. Now, it is also Barbie Day. Back in 1959, on this date, an 11-inch tall bombshell made her debut at the American International Toy Fair in New York City. Ruth Handler was the designer and the co-founder of Mattel. And you can still go by Barbie and Skipper and so many outfits, as well as her boyfriend, Ken. So things are still going for Barbie. Now, it is also National False Teeth Day, which is observed to raise awareness about the necessity of dental care. Now, false teeth, also known as dentures, are indeed still around. Now, some celebrities such as Ben Affleck, Miley Cyrus, George Clooney, Tom Cruise, and even Morgan Freeman have false teeth. Now, it is also Dishwasher Appreciation Day for that device that has changed how we all live. Well, most of you. I actually have a dishwasher, but I don't use it because I don't understand how the thing works. So I still wash my dishes by hand, the old school method. So I guess you all should be celebrating for National Dishwasher Day, but I will sit at home and with my soap and sponge. Now, it is also National Popcorn Lovers Day, which I thought was very appropriate because we're talking about some movie history right here in Arizona, whether you like it salted, buttered, carameled, or even kettle corn, here is a great day to celebrate for all those lovers. Now, it is also a full moon. Now, indigenous tribes have called this the full crow moon because it's the end of winter, when the cawing of the crows is nonstop. This has also been called the full crust moon, not because of pie, but because the snow covering the mountains gets really kind of that crust on it. And, and I think after the last few days, we indeed probably do have a full crust moon glistening off so much of our surroundings. So what can you expect tonight if this is your first time watching? Well, here at Arizona History Happy Hour, we always do a little bit of trivia. We have From the Vault, which is something you might drive by, maybe something you should stop in. Check it out. We also do some music history, as well as Little Arizona, exploring a small town in Arizona. And indeed, there's a beverage and, of course, a super special guest. So if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I got here a little over 23 years ago. I was working in Brooklyn at a beautiful Carnegie building and decided to trade all that snow. Well, there's a little bit of snow in that photo, but believe me, there were lots of snow days. And so decided to trade that all for something sunny, a library in South Phoenix that had this rich oral tradition of the community. And so from that, my exposure to Arizona was through stories. And so I just continued talking and learning more stories, just like we're doing today. Now, we promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch. And my kitchen is pretty much all original with that buttercream yellow tile, that yellow in-the-wall oven with no window, and even the matching stovetop. So the house is pretty much a time capsule. As soon as we got here, I'll keep hearing about how there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true because every time I went somewhere, whether it was on a bike, in a car, on a sled, in a kayak, whatever, I kept coming across so many amazing people, places, and stories. And so just started sharing that. Now, I'm also called the hip historian because I get to play with Arizona history. Oh my gosh. Now, coming up the 24th of this month, my friend Clottie, she is going to be doing Souls of the Great Migration down at Heritage Square. So that's going to be a fun event on that Friday all day long. We've also been doing videos on a variety of things around town with local buzz, as well as get out to Scottsdale Public Art and check out Scottsdale Public Library and check out the Rip Woods exhibit. He was an educator, a leader, a graduate of Carver High School. And so it's a combination of his work as well as some of his students. And it's a really good show. And then this Friday, I'm excited because I'm going to be out in Mesa at the Main Street Comedy Show. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to be doing, but it's going to be fun. Get ready for some laughs. Get ready for some stories, maybe some cool stories. We shall see where the night takes us. And it's not recorded. So the only way to enjoy it is to be there. We also have coming up on the 24th as well that evening, Arizona Unzipped, which is a burlesque show that is all about Arizona history. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And also, if you got my newsletter today, you can sign up to be in a raffle for some free tickets. So if you want to go to my website, you can sign up. We'll be doing those next week. I think we're going to do it on St. Patrick's Day is when I'm going to let people know that they have free tickets to go see Arizona Unzipped. And so I'm happy to see a lot of you. Oh, and I see Deb is a hand washer too for her dishes. Oh, and so is Andre. So very good. I guess I'm not the only one that doesn't understand those newfangled machines. So, you can reach out to me. If you don't do it in the chat here, say it's after the show. You can always reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, email, or even through my website. It's all good because I love to hear from you all. And oh my gosh. So tonight we have Delgadillo's Daisy, which I think is kind of cool because it actually references one of our trivia questions coming up in just a bit. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And so the cool thing is so PJ keeps me on my toes. So this has Spring 44 Old Tom gin in it, something called Tapazin Blanco. I have no idea what that is. A little bit of agave sour with pineapple, Mayan guabana, aquafaba, which is indeed, I know that is chickpea juice, and Jamaica. And so let's see if Silent Bob is ready to make me a cocktail. It looks like he's kind of slouching on the job, but all right. So now we have to shake this so it gets a little bit of froth on it. All right. Well, and look at that. It's a perfect pour in that glass. How nice. So there we go. Oh, and Silent Bob looks like he's a little out of focus. I think he's been hitting the sauce already. So, Bob, thank you so much for the cocktail. Oh, that's quite lovely. All right. Let's see. All right. So now we are moving on to Little Arizona. Let me get rid of Bob because he's just kind of hanging out doing nothing. All right. So today we are talking about a little town in Arizona that was founded back in 1957. So Page, Arizona. Population almost 7,500. And it was founded initially because of Glen Canyon Dam. It's where the workers lived when they were building the dam that went live in 1966. Now, that dam basically flooded the canyon and created a wide variety of things. You can go visit things like the Vermilion Cliffs, which is a national monument, which we talked a little bit about last week. And so you can go visit those. You can also see Monument Valley, as well as it created Lake Powell. And so it was kind of controversial for what it did because it flooded the canyon. And in some cases, even some buildings were buried. But we'll get to more of that later. But it is also where they filmed Planet of the Apes. And so one of the things that while they were up there is they weren't quite expecting the heat like they got. And so they actually started putting people in trailers in full makeup because their makeup was taking hours. And so it'd put them in these trailers until they needed them for just a few minutes. And then they would shove them back in the trailers so they wouldn't have to keep pushing them in and out of makeup, which would take forever. Now, Glen Canyon Dam, now Lake Powell is reaching really super low rates, low in terms of water because of the drought. They have looked at, it's a dam that generates electricity for several states. And because of low water, they're looking to figure out what to do. Now, it was controversial when it was built, and there have been people calling pretty much since day one about how Glen Canyon Dam should just be removed. So it will be interesting to see what happens as the future goes on for Glen Canyon Dam. So here on Arizona History Happy Hour, we are now at a point where you get to hear from someone else, not just me. And so I am excited to bring on my friend Steve Weiss. Now, he is a Phoenix native, and in high school, he got exposed to photography, not radiation, photography. And so he went on. Oh, they're working on some desalinization up there. Oh, cool. I'm glad to see that there are other things going on. So he also got a BFA from the San Francisco Art Institute and ASU. His work is in a variety of collections and museums. He was given the Phoenix Art Museum Contemporary Form Artist Materials Grant back in 2001. And he then started doing collaborative video projects for a wide variety of organizations. He also worked for companies doing ads across Arizona. So he got a really interesting exposure to that. Currently, he can be seen hosting a variety of no film festival required, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. He also is on the advisory board for Tovre Castle, as well as the Downtown Phoenix Arts Coalition and chair for the, I didn't realize you were the chair for the Downtown Voices. Very cool. All right, so let us bring on my friend Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
I am good, and yourself? Did I leave anything else important? Oh, wait a minute, what's that in the background? Is that a popcorn machine? Are you celebrating Popcorn Lovers Day?
I am now. I'm sorry, I had to turn it off. It makes a lot of noise.
True.
So let's just, bask in the glow of it. Thank you for bringing me on. I as far as the things you mentioned, yes, at one time I was actually the chair of Downtown Voices Coalition. DPAC was the organization that created that group, and so, but other people have been chair since, and I'm sort of like, the guy who's been around for a while at this point. Other than that, as far as everything else goes, it sounded pretty right.
All right. So we've got some trivia coming up. Now, our trivia is not quite like bar trivia when you do that. Oh, and Steve, what is in your glass?
Oh, it's real simple. It's 4 roses, a little bit of ice, a little bit of water.
Nice.
It was going to either be that or Arizona sake. I figured those are the two that were best for the night.
Nice. All right. So with our trivia, what I love about trivia is the fact that we don't care just what the answer is, but you'll also get the stories behind the answers. So it's going to be so much fun as we kind of bounce all over the place. And that's going to be the fun for this evening. We're going to touch on a wide variety of topics. And so you can keep track of, now I know Anita has a special notebook. I've got one friend who likes to send me body parts with the answers written on it. So I don't share those. So, but it's always a fun time. And so, all right. Some people also keep track of their trivia in the chat. You can do whatever you would like. It's all good. All right. So question 1. Which movie was originally shot in Arizona and then remade here as well? A, Psycho. B, The Getaway. C, Stagecoach. Or D, Eight-Legged Freaks. Which one of those movies was originally shot in Arizona and then remade right here? All right, question 2. What was shot here and went straight to video? Oh my gosh. That might say something about the quality of the movie. I don't know. We shall find out. All right, so was it A, No Code of Conduct? B, O.C. and Stiggs? C, The Miniskirt Mob? Or D, Suture? So which one of those movies was shot here and didn't make it to a screen, but went right to, well, I guess right to your TV screen is where it went to. So, and and that's why it's a multiple choice. So even if you don't know the answer, take a guess and you might have a good shot of getting it right. And so, all right. So question 3. What location was featured in Marilyn Monroe's bus stop? Was it A, Trinity Cathedral? B, North Mountain Hospital? C, South Mountain Scorpion Gulch? Or D, the Arizona State Fairgrounds? So which one of those was featured in Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe? So do you remember North Mountain Hospital?
I don't know the story. Is that the Dr. Hall?
That's Dr. Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was North Phoenix up in Sunny Slopes. So,
and he was involved with El Cid, the bowling alley.
Indeed he was. which then later became a hockey arena.
And later became a church.
Oh, and is now it's now a government office. They like covered over a lot. All the terrazzo floors are now been covered over, sadly.
Wow.
So, but it still looks like a castle.
Wow. I'm impressed.
All right. Question 4. Which movie was filmed in Levine, Arizona? Was that A, Wild 7, B, Songs of the South, C, Arizona, or D, Gauntlet? So which one of those movies was filmed in the little town of Levine, Arizona? All right, question 5. What movie was filmed at Mezcal Movie Ranch? There would have been a good drink as well. Mezcal would have been a good option. All right, so was that Tombstone, B, The Quick and the Dead, C, Lonesome Cowboy, or D, Miniskirt Mob? All right. Question 6. What location was used as a police station in No Code of Conduct? Was it A, Carver Museum, B, Burton Bar Library, C, Superior Court in Cochise County, or D, Tucson's Laco Restaurant? So which of those locations do you think was used as a police station in the movie No Code of Conduct? I love somebody said, oh, you know, the Miniskirt Mob, which was an actual movie shot in Arizona. So, and I bet it's good. All right. Question 7. What movie blew the windows out of the brutalist Trotter Park? Oh. Okay. Was it A, No Code of Conduct, B, Gauntlet, C, Pocket Money, or D, The Sugar Creek Killer? So which movie did they blow out all the windows of the Trotter Park that is now gone? All right. Question 8. What restaurant was featured in the movie Wishman? Was it A, Tempe's Monte's Casa Vieja, B, Seligman's Snowcap Drive-In, C, Bisbee's Cafe Roca, or D, Flagstaff's Toasted Owl? So which one of those restaurants was featured in the movie Wishman? Question 9. Where was the 2005 movie Fifth World filmed? Was it A, Kenyatta, B, Four Corners, C, Table Mesa, or Page? All right. Now we're coming up to the end, or are we? So question 10, The Kingdom was filmed here in Phoenix. Did they use A, ASU's Polytechnic Campus, B, Maricopa County Historic Courthouse, C, Monty's, or D, the conference room at the Dial Building? Now that building still stands, but it is no longer the Dial Building. All right. And then we have one last question. What location has been used for athletic commercials with celebrities like Charles Barkley? Was that A, Paradise Valley YMCA, B, Mountainside Fitness at Chase Field, C, Sunny Slope Hockey Arena, or El Cid, as we were talking earlier, or D, Phoenix's North High School, the old gym? So which one of those do you think they filmed athletic commercials with celebrities like Charles Barkley? All right. So we are going to, while you are locking in your final answers, we are going to take a little bit of an air music break. And so we are going to talk about Dwayne Eddy.
Oh my God.
You know, it's funny. It was like, so I think MSNBC just ran. I will repost it on Hip Historian Facebook page. So that twang heard round the world, basically his guitarist was like, hey, you know, we should cover this Peter Gunn TV show song. And they said, sure, why not? There's not much we can do. But they went down to the Salt River to a junkyard down there and found this water tank the size of a bus. drug it back up to Central Phoenix. They stuck a microphone on one end and a speaker on the other end. And so that's how they got all that reverb and Rebel Rouser and everything else. And then when they took it to LA, they put even more reverb. So they were just really cranking it up. And so that is how the twang heard round the world from Duane Eddy, starting with Peter Gunn, and still that sound of rockabilly and that deep, heavy bass is still popular today.
Can I tell you a little bit about that guy's teeth? Maybe
Sure.
you go one step back. See those beautiful teeth of his?
Yeah.
My father put those in his mouth.
Oh.
Duane Eddy was a guy in Phoenix who had bad teeth, but was about ready to, launch his career. And my father was a dentist in the late 40s in Arizona. That's where he started. Duane Eddy came to him as a patient. Dad did some, I don't know if it was bridge work or, there wasn't any whitening of teeth in those days. But I just get a kick out of this when you put up that picture. I'm looking at my father's work.
That is so funny.
I'll leave it at that.
Very good. I didn't realize that. How cool is that? See, you never know what you're going to learn here. All right. So for some answers. Oh my gosh. Okay. So which of those movies was originally shot here in Arizona and then remade here? Oh, it was a trick question. It was almost all of them. So we have Psycho, The Getaway, and Stagecoach. I didn't realize they'd remade that.
Yeah. Oh, Stagecoach. It was actually remade with, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it might have even been made 3 times, but the last one was the one with Christopherson and Nelson.
Wow. And then, of course, there is Psycho, which just added more because the original, and actually we're going to show the intro to the original Psycho at the very end of the show. So in case you want to see a sweep across 1960 Phoenix back in the day, hang on to the very end and you'll get to see that intro. And then Gus Van Sant shot a movie that focused on the Westward Ho, which just kind of muddied the waters. So... And then, of course, then Getaway. I mean, the famous Steve McQueen, Ali McGraw. Oh, with Kim Basinger. Oh.
Yeah, they, the scenes that they did around here, up in Prescott, around the valley, there was quite a big shoot as far as that period of time. That was one of the bigger shoots that had come here in quite a while.
Indeed. All right. What was shot here and went straight to video? Oh, again, it was a trick question. All right. So we have No Code of Conduct, OC and Stigs, and Suture.
Now, some people may remember that there was, and this is going way, way back, but some people may remember that there was it was essentially a tack and saddle place right at 28th Street and Indian School. And that was one of the locations that OC and Stigs used. One of the strangest films that ever came to the Valley, I think, in terms of filming, because of Robert Altman being the director, because of things like Fela Ransom Kuti, the absolute king of Afropop, came here specifically to do a scene in the film. It was just an oddball movie that I have to say, in all fairness, I've tried to watch. I'll leave it at that.
And what about Sutures?
Sutures, I knew a few people who worked on Sutures on crew. Again, really an oddball project. The idea that these directors came to Phoenix with the intent of essentially making a film that looked like a Japanese-made, 1970s movie. It was shot in black and white. There was very much a question of, what we were hearing was a lot of tonal range of white and black. It was very much a, kind of indie looking film, but it had a lot of backing to it. It actually got a pretty good support to it. And as we were talking about previously, that, the directors, the duo directors came here specifically because they said at the time when they made the film that Phoenix looked like a place that was absolutely empty. It looked like, this vast wasteland, and that appealed to them. And I have to say, as a location scout for like 20 years, that's not the first time I ever heard that.
Wow.
There were directors who literally, I drove around town and they'd, I'd be driving on Van Buren and this was maybe late 90s, early 2000, and they would be calling their friends in LA and saying, we have to shoot this movie on the street. It's amazing. It's like, the 1960s and no one's here, it's all clear. So it was very strange.
Indeed. And then what location was featured with Marilyn Monroe in the movie Bus Stop? And indeed is that grandstand at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. One of the things I love about especially this movie is I've got friends who, I think it was her father was a child and was one of the extras. And so when they watch the movie, there's a scene where dad, who's no longer around,
wow,
is seen at a really young age, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And which movie was filmed in Levine, Arizona? Oh, A, The Wild Seven, and B, Song of the South, a Disney movie, which you can no longer watch on Disney Plus. So exactly, Mary Carmen. That's why we talked about. So, actually, I can throw her comment up. See, look at that fancy bit. And so, yeah, so okay, so I don't know if I should say this or not, but we are looking at doing with the fairgrounds kind of a haunted history tour of the fairgrounds right after the state fair. So that should be quite interesting. And so sharing the fact that there's been the fairgrounds there since 1905 and talking about some of those buildings that are there. So that's going to be a fun tour. So I'm looking forward to being able to get into some of those buildings that people normally don't get into. Right. So now, did you work on the Wild Seven?
I did not. I have gone to the Del Monte Market out in Levine multiple times to use as a location. I think we actually, I'm trying to think, I believe the last time I was there, looking at it as a location, was some sort of pharmaceutical convention where they had a purple pill. I don't know, it wasn't a blue pill, so we don't have to talk about that. But it was some sort of purple pill. I don't remember the name of it. And they shot this amazing ad where it looked like a road tour, and they had a beautiful purple, 1950s car, and it was, matched the packaging. And it wasn't a commercial. It was actually a lead-in to a big conference out at probably the Symphony Hall, but Civic Plaza, where essentially, as the film ended with the car driving away in the sunset, the car drove onto stage and the CEO got out and, hopefully said everything was going well, with their stock. But yeah, it was a fun job, very small crew, but we drove all over the place. We actually had police officers that played small roles, though they got no feature or anything like that. But yeah, we closed a lot of streets in order to like buzz this car down it. And it was all very much guerrilla filmmaking. We had permits and we had officers. We did it the right way.
And then Song of the South was filmed in Levine.
You know so much more about that one than me. I've always been curious about like finding the people who played, you know, like extras and leads and stuff. You were talking about somebody who helped to assist with an animal.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like from the First Families. It was like somebody would talk about how it's like her brother was pushing a cow across the screen. And so that's what I love about that group is they have this completely different view of Arizona.
And you know, I mean, as the history goes of film, what happened that somebody decided, hey, Phoenix's canals in Levine would be just perfect for, you know, Song of the. How did that come up? I mean,
so it actually happened. They tried filming in Atlanta, but they couldn't get the white folks to work with the black folks.
Sure.
And so they came here and it wasn't as big of an issue.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of fascinating. I still have yet to figure out how he wound up there. So I don't know quite what the connection is. So hopefully
maybe somebody out there will tell us, you know,
you never know who's watching and what they'll know. So that's part of the fun. All right. So what movie was filmed at Mezcal Movie Ranch? Oh, Tombstone and The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming because of Tombstone, Mezcal Movie Ranch must be in southern Arizona.
Yes. Outside of Benson, I believe.
Oh.
And it's wonderful. First of all, I found out about it because, you know, I needed a location. Actually, no, I'm gonna step back. I found out about it because of The Quick and the Dead. I got a call from a friend who was the second assistant cameraman on The Quick and the Dead. Guy he worked with Disney. He's worked with a bunch of different stuff. And he, you know, local guy, grew up with him. And he called me one day and he said, hey, man, you know, I know, you know, you like movie making stuff. I'm in Tucson, or we're shooting outside of Tucson, some movie with, Gene Hackman. I said, well, that's nice. That's really nice. And he said, yeah, and Sharon Stone. I said, can I visit? I'll be right down. And I literally drove with a car that was just I had bought the truck like maybe a week before. All the tires were terrible. The entire drive back and forth to Tucson, it was like bump, 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 bump all the way. I didn't care. And yes, I did get to meet Sharon Stone. And yes, I had the same effect. She had the same effect on me that she described in GQ magazine when she said, it's really hard to date because of the stunned trout effect I seem to have on men when I meet them. And I completely get that. But she, you know, I came down and watched filming. I watched the, you know, director Sam Raimi, if I'm not mistaken, you know, do actually a Q&A with European journalists who had come to report on the film. And so I got to listen to him explaining what the hell, you know, I just watched a few minutes before. But it was wonderful. And, you know, I won't bore you with meeting her, but oh my God.
So Deb got this question right because she was an extra down there for a movie with in the background.
Yeah, it was. There was a scene where she actually, and Deb might have been in that scene. There was a scene where she had just like, you know, killed somebody or won something, and the whole crowd is applauding and everybody's going, yay, yay, you know, and as she walks through the scene. And when the director yelled cut, she said, I wish you had all said that when I did Intersection, which was a film that supposedly was a great film that nobody saw. So I thought that was a nice line. And by the way, there was a guy, and Deb might remember, there was this like punk kid walking around, you know, it was like, I saw him in his cowboy figure, you know, he's some extra background guy. that I found out later was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, well, it's like there are so many folks locally who have been in so many background in so many films. Yeah. That I've got one friend, he talks about how it's like a family reunion when he goes to see an old movie because there's so many family members hanging out in the back behind the scenes.
There were a lot of news anchors that popped up as news anchors in various movies and commercials around this town. What was it? Fire in the Sky. Certainly there was a bunch of different things where, like, if anything was going to hell, they would usually find a local anchor and then like put them in their comfortable seat, and they ended up in these films,
Oh, that's funny. All right. Question 6. What location was used as a police station in No Code of Conduct? It was Carver. Especially with that hallway. I mean, you can easily see how that could be a police station.
Oh yeah, I mean there was so many different scenes. There's actually a scene where they're like kicking in a door, and it turns out that's like Carver too. They just used another section of it. I mean, it was if you're going to shoot a movie, that's the one to go with. Amazing building, and
oh my gosh, it is such an amazing building, and so I'm so glad that it's still standing and has that history that it still holds.
Yep, absolutely.
So. Oh, and then what movie blew the windows out of the brutalist Trotter Park? No Code of Conduct.
Yeah, No Code of Conduct. It's the space that they used to build their interior sets was actually what is now the U-Haul building on Indian School, close to 28th Street.
Oh, yeah.
At that time, it was the Enswite building, and it was an abandoned, it was a closed building. So they were able to like build their sets inside. What was funny was it was directly across the street from the Warsaw Wallies, which was at the time the great blues club of Phoenix. And Charlie decided at the end of shooting one day to like wander over to Warsaw Wallies and maybe sit in with the band. And I believe he got booed off the stage that night. We were pretty serious about our blues in those days. Charlie, yeah, that film has so many stories about it. It's not funny.
Well, I mean, and it's like, and the whole Trotter Park, it was kind of like they blew almost every single window out of that joint. So it was unusable for anything else.
Yeah, there was a screening I did once of short films by local filmmakers, and I decided to open it up with sort of an acknowledgement of Arizona. And I basically said, people come here for the sunsets, they come here for the roads and the landscapes, but seems like mainly they just want to like come here to blow up shit really good, And so what ends up happening is you have No Code of Conduct. You have The Quick and the Dead. Don't want to give anything away, but The Quick and the Dead. Low Down Dirty Shame / Tank Girl for the Galleria. There was really a push here to blow stuff up and make it, that's what we were. We were the place where you'd go to find a place where you could push a car off a cliff or blow something up.
Because that was back before CGI and everything, so they had to do it in real time, and so
exactly. There was actually a film shot here called Interstate 60, and I watched the film, watching the commentary by the director, and he said, we had a scene where the car goes off the cliff, but we're the only film that's ever seemingly been made where the car goes off the cliff, but it doesn't blow up. It just goes off the cliff, because they don't really always blow up. So that's what happened.
Indeed. That's so funny. It reminds me people came here to blow stuff up. Aw, that's so sad. All right. What restaurant was featured in the movie Wish Man? Oh, and of course it would be Seligman's Snowcap Drive-In, which is still standing today. And hence that's why we have our cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
Is for the brothers there.
Yeah.
Now, I thought it was interesting because also Wishman tells somewhat of the story of the founding of Make-A-Wish, which actually is a local story as well. So I've never heard of the movie Wishman, so I think I may go track that down.
Yeah, I think, when you look at an Arizona filmography, there's going to be an awful lot of stuff that went straight to video, that may have been produced but never came out. When we started to have things like, the Fast and Furious films and the Quick and the Dead, and even, the Kingdom and on, there was a point where, people were really acknowledging that you can come here and make a film and it can go farther, and many is the time that people will location scout a place, examine everything and decide to shoot it somewhere else. There's a film that came out called Spare Parts, which was all about a team, I believe in Tucson, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
that was a robotic team, from the barrio and such, very little money, but, ended up winning the award. Well, they shot it in New Mexico. And, that's the kind of sad thing that we would hear all the time is, a film would a lot of film projects would travel over Arizona from California and land in New Mexico and film there. And it really was a question of economics and tax credits and studios and sound stages. Many of the things that we're now slowly and surely, hopefully, going to build as we've gotten the Arizona legislature to back tax credits and a film office, essentially.
Right. Well, that's like I remember Breaking Bad was originally supposed to be set here, but they got a better deal in Albuquerque.
Oh, yeah, way better.
Way better.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that happened here in New Mexico was they didn't offer tax credits. They would offer hard cash. A percentage of your project would be, compensated. But even more so, and this is really where the infrastructure situation comes, is you have to build the sound stage, or they'll do maybe principal filming here and then just leave, and then everything else is going on somewhere else. And that doesn't bring in the hotel rooms, that doesn't bring in the rental cars, that doesn't bring in all the production people. A TV commercial a simple TV commercial will have 40 to 60 people on it. A simple commercial.
Wow.
And it can get way bigger than that with extras and catering and talent and everything else. But I mean, this is ridiculous amounts of money that come in, therefore encouraging it rather than saying we're not the state who does that, but just to our east is one that has some of the looks we have. Maybe you should go there. I think that's what happened for a number of years as we were sort of in between that situation. And I'm, as long as they hire enough local people, I'm all for all the tax credits, all the benefits, everything else. It's just incredibly important that it's, bringing in local people. And now with the school at ASU, the Sidney Poitier Film School, Scottsdale Communities Film School, which is really much, very much a professional program. Right. They are creating people who may not, maybe they want to be a director, but maybe they want to understand that they can make, very good money on a daily basis working on, as a PA or a grip or a gaffer or a caterer or hair and makeup. I mean, there's just so much money involved in filmmaking. And I worked in commercials mostly because, it was only 30 seconds.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the school, because I think one of my hopes is that it's like Arizona got such a reputation for being where you shot Westerns, whether it was a new Western, I mean, Tombstone or Arizona or any of the John Waynes or anything of that ilk, 310 to Yuma, the list goes on, that I'm hoping by that school being able to showcase Arizona landscapes in a different way to get us out of kind of repeating those same stories and being able to tell new stories.
Well, and also, you got to think about like Zabriskie Point, which, used a house, a contemporary modernist house in the Cave Creek area, as the house location. There's a lot of different things. What we're asked routinely as a location scout is find me, the thing that doesn't exist here, or that you have to sort of put your thinking cap on for what it is. My favorite job was a script that said, our opening scene is a snowbound Canadian home. And, they hand the script to me and say, find that, and we did. And actually the commercial continued with, and we decided to go out in our Pontiac Montana, I think it was, for Mexican food. There's a tight shot of the radio being changed to Mexican music, and suddenly we're in Mexico, except we're not in Mexico. We're in like 3 different locations in the Phoenix area, about an hour out of town, So there's a lot of thoughts that you can only shoot stuff that feels like a Western, but as a location scout and with the prices in comparison to LA, our job was always to like find that thing that fits the other thing, and we have a lot of different stuff. It may not go for miles, but you got this, downtown that kind of looks like New York, but it's about this big.
Right. So you need a little permit, not a lot of.
You just keep filming back and forth.
So I'm kind of looking forward to the future of filmmaking here, kind of as the school starts ramping up and people start becoming more familiar with what's here.
Yeah.
And looking at it through new lenses.
Absolutely.
So where was the 2005 movie Fifth World filmed? Up on the Navajo Nation, Kenyatta. And I love how it's like, as we were talking, it's like they're not just filming in Phoenix or Tucson, but you're starting to get some of those small towns. Jake's Corner. So some little small towns with a very small population. Probably the movie brings in a more population than the town itself.
Phoenix and Tucson are definitely the big towns that people will understand. There's a film office, there's people to contact. Phoenix has a film office, so does Tucson. What filmmakers find out is that Wickenburg, has a chamber of commerce that'll work with you to do filming there. Certainly Oak Creek and Sedona, with all of the car commercials and all of the things that come through there, they're well aware of, how to work with people to be able to allow filming, and on places where, and days, frankly, you have to kind of schedule stuff so that you don't take over whatever it is that's going on. And fortunately, Phoenix really does have a very varied architecture. The architecture of Phoenix is there's so many different styles that you can find the Canadian house, and not far from that, you can find a Southwestern adobe house, and not far from that, you can find the Ralston house.
Yeah.
I think that variety of things, that, and plus everything needs to be about an hour and a half away, because they all want to come back and have a nice dinner after they're done shooting. And so basically what they'd like is Monument Valley, but about an hour and a half from Phoenix. And so what my job as a location scout was to say, it doesn't really work that way. No, those sites that you saw in Arizona highways, you'd have to be a really good hiker to get your 60 people crew in there. So that's that process. But we have tons of things here to film, and I would really hope, like you say, I would really hope that the school at ASU takes advantage of that and understands that it's not just about Westerns or skateboarding. There's something in between.
Right. And I remember when I worked at Burton Bar, there were lots of European car commercials that would happen and in front of that Will Bruder building.
Yep. Yeah. We, I know I worked on one out there. I don't remember which car, But yeah, BMW was an amazing job. They asked me to find what was it, European modernist buildings, and I'm like, what do you mean? And so they sent me a couple of examples, and I said, well, wait a second, yeah, the Punch Card Building on Central and
Right.
Osborne, and then I started extending out to different places. There's a lot of like wonderful garages with a top level that's exposed to the light all around, downtown, out in Scottsdale and stuff like that. That was the perfect background for these like brand new BMWs that no one ever seen. The cars themselves had a plastic shell over them with a window cut in, so that when the driver drove it off the truck and brought it up to the place, no one could ever see the car until at the moment of photographing, they would reveal the car, take some pictures, and then seal it down again, because nobody's supposed to see what this thing looks like. They did that all over town.
Well, my parents are up in Yucca, which is near what is now the Dodge Proving Grounds, and so they said you'll see a car drive by that is just covered in stuff to try and obscure the vehicle underneath, so that way you can't see what it looks like.
Yeah, there's I think that's the Ford Proving Ground out there, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Ford, but now I think it's Chrysler and Harley Davidson.
Yeah, there used to be a Volvo test track out in the West Valley, and I always thought that was really good because Volvos are terrible in the heat. And,
yes, they were never. I mean, it was like an East Coast car where it gets cold.
Exactly. So I think they finally figured out they had to run them brutally in Arizona just to see if they could survive.
All right. Question 10. The Kingdom was filmed here in Phoenix. Where? The Polytechnic campus, which is the East Valley. Oh, and also the Old County Courthouse.
That was one of the few things that you've listed that I actually worked on for a while. I was brought in as essentially a local guy. The main location scout and all of his assistants were coming from the whatever the studio was hiring out of LA, but they needed what I describe as a dirty Harry, to come in and find the things nobody else could figure out, and that was my job. And of course they changed the script, so we went from like, what was it, a conversation, a secret conversation between somebody and Jamie Foxx, and that's all I was given at first. And they said, go look at bars, go look at restaurants. So I went everywhere from like Rips, the old Rips, I think, and Monty's down on 19th Avenue, to Maggioni's, to what was it? I went to so many different places as they kept changing. Like, it's going to be a dive bar. No, it's going to be a real classy place. So they ended up actually shooting what they did an exterior shot of Maggioni's signage, which I'm sure was the payoff for them then being able to spend probably 6 hours shooting what was maybe 2 minutes worth of footage, but it required everything. But there's like this brief scene, and then they're gone. And then they asked me, they said, let's find we need a Georgian row house. and I said, in Phoenix. Okay. And we found something, mostly worked for interiors, but yeah, there's stuff out there. We're very varied.
Indeed. All right. And our last question is, what is the location that was used for athletic commercials with celebrities like Charles Barkley? Oh, I didn't realize they had an old gym.
Yeah. The situation at North is unlike any place I can think of. What they had was this beautiful vintage gym for probably, well, I don't know, maybe 1930s, 1940s, I suspect. Whenever the school was built, that was the gym that was built. And They later, made a nicer gym, brand new, fancy. But they were nice enough to keep this one and keep it up, maintained, and all the lights are on and the power's on. So as a location scout, that was a place that I not only, brought commercials that actually shot there, but I showed it off to many different people. It was, I think it was one of the last jobs I did as a location scout. Somebody contacted me and said, we'd like you to go out and scout and, find a gym. And they described the gym. And I said, I'm kind of at the end of my career at this, and you seem nice. Let me just send you pictures of 3 different places, and I'll tell you which one's the best. And then you tell me whether I've done a good job, and we'll call that a day's worth of work, because I could go out to the place. I could look at it as it looks today. And I can tell you as a location scout, you always went back to look at it if the client wanted. The Morristown, the double-story house that's right outside of Morristown, outside of Wickenburg. Well, that's a roadhouse that was very deteriorated when another location scout I knew photographed it for his files, to show off his files and say, here's another example of a cool place. Well, the photographer, Dennis Menarche, was working on a tire commercial, and he said, oh, that's absolutely perfect. But, go out there and shoot it as it looks today. He goes out and shoots it. Sure enough, they had repainted it, retrimmed it, done everything, and made it just beautiful.
Oh.
And the client paid for the building to be distressed down with the paint to the level that it looked in my friend's pictures. Shot the commercial, shot this. It might have even been a still ad. Shot the pictures, and then paid to have it brought back up again to completely repainted. And that's production. That's how filming works.
Wow.
That's the money that's why when they come to you and say, we'd love to film in front of your house, are you willing to do it? I would say to you, maybe. What are we talking about?
Right.
If you don't start there, me as a location scout would probably try and convince you that it's the best thing ever that you would ever want to do. And, what is it? 12, 16 hours later, you might want to kill me, so
right.
Get some money.
Well, and one of the things I love about, like this photo, it's like, it reminds me of like the Carver Gymnasium as well, but there's so much more light.
Right. Yeah. Skylights on both sides. You see the notes. These are the kind of notes that I would throw at the bottom of, sending out the pictures. And what you're looking at actually is very old school. That's 35 millimeter film shot into 4x6 prints, which are then all interleaved and glued together, taped together and laid out for the client to see. And before digital, if you had to set out 4 different sets of pictures, you would have to make one set and go to Kinko's, and make color copies of everything. And you go to FedEx, or in my case, a lot of times you'd go to the airport, and you'd have 4 counter-to-counter packages, which would be sent to all these different places in the world, and everyone would have the same package of pictures, and they'd supposedly all be looking at it. And then one day, somebody came up with, hey, we got this digital thing. We can send the pictures via, email or whatever. And then the next step was, we can put them on a website with all the information, and you can have a private password. You can go look at it, and that's where it is right now. It's. Let me put it this way: that's where it was when I stopped working at it. It got a lot different.
Wow. All right. Well, I always like to ask people how they did, and remind them it's like, it's not the score you got. I have a feeling because some of them, almost like every answer was the correct answer. We'll probably have fairly good scores, but but the stories, oh my gosh. About No Code of Conduct, that Charlie Sheen movie where they blew the windows out of the Trotter Park.
allegedly, as they say, every at the end of every day of shooting, he was cut out of his clothes with with a pair of EMT scissors because it was difficult to get him out of his clothes, having spent the day in allegedly an inebriated state.
Not a shock there. Wow. All right. So, oh my gosh, and Lisa, hello. It is good to see you. We have so all right. So, Steve, now you have something coming up next month.
I do. My other job, as it is a thing called film programming. It's what I started doing while I was coming out of location scouting and moving into another business. Frankly, it was 9/11 in 2001, and thinking that no one would come here to film anymore because they had to get on a plane. I was shocked the first job that came through, because really and truly there weren't like a lot of people flying. They were trying to figure out any way to shoot stuff in Arizona. So in 2002, I kind of came back to my roots of filmmaking, but even more important, helping other filmmakers to screen their work. And so as a result, this is the result of 21 years of film programming, which is after all these years of doing a monthly screening of architecture films, or perhaps a once a year screening, I thought, why not do 3 screenings in one day, 2 at Phoenix Center for the Arts, and then a evening screening over at Park Central Pavilion. Their arts pavilion is the only space I've ever found that is an outdoor space with a roof, which is really like a godsend to film screeners.
Oh, right. That like interior
You don't have
courtyard.
to worry about rain, maybe wind a little, but otherwise it's quite a nice atmosphere. And so what I'm screening is the first time we've ever had. We don't have an architectural film festival in Arizona. So I decided instead of doing that, I'd do something small and show off what the potential is, and let some bright, shiny penny out there help me to put on the Arizona Architectural Film Festival at some date to be determined. My company is called No Festival Required. There's a reason for that. But one of the big things is, I actually have 3 different film festivals that I believe in. I believe in indigenous film festivals. I believe in the Greater Jewish Phoenix Film Festival. And I believe that we could really easily have an Arizona Architectural Film and Design Festival. But I'm waiting for that one to happen. And in the meantime, I threw these 3 films, which are just beautiful. They're all mystery stories encased in architecture. I can't, say enough about how wonderful these filmmakers and these films are.
So, okay, so people get to see the movies. Do they get to do anything else other than just watch a movie?
Interestingly, we wanted to have like a little extra with the films over at Phoenix Center for the Arts. So the morning film, Americaville, will not only, show the film and, the wonderful story of this strange place outside of Beijing where they've recreated America, and people are essentially cosplaying being Americans in the Great West. But we'll also, I believe I'm the first person who ever did it in the Valley, because I remember when we switched the switch over at Smoka. But what happens is, not only do you watch the film, but at the end of the film, we'll switch to Skype on the screen and have a microphone to talk to the filmmaker, Adam James Smith. He'll be able to do a Q&A from his home in New York for the audience. And then the afternoon film, The Proposal, which is essentially about the purchasing of Barragan's archive, and why can a famous architect's archive be taken to private ownership. Following the film, we're going to have a discussion with Eddie Jones, leading the discussion, architect Eddie Jones, with 3 different archivists from the Valley who are all working with architecture and the people who we all know from history in architecture in Arizona. And it's going to be a very casual conversation, but it's going to be pretty interesting. I think it's great for every artist to think about that. Artists should wonder, you know, where does your stuff go when you're gone, and what's going to happen to it? So I think that'll be a you know, pretty interesting discussion right on side. And it's Saturday, April 22nd, and I'm you know, very much promoting the idea that you get a pass for $20. You get the 2 films in the daytime, and you also get an RSVP for the free screening that's happening. That's a free to the public screening, but you know, at some point in time, we have to cut off based on RSVPs. So you know, that's kind of where it's at. I think it's very cool that you can have a film in the morning, go wander around downtown and look at architecture, and then come back for another film. It's all very light rail friendly, and I would say if you know where the light rail station is near Park Central, and also the light rail station that's near the Foundry Hotel, and those are pretty much the 2 rail stations where you'll be meeting. Can I announce the thing about Foundry?
Of course.
Excellent. All right. Foundry Hotel, approximately, what is it, Portland and Central.
Mm-hmm.
They are one of our supporting sponsors. They've been very nice to offer a room for the night for 2, which I guess they, you know, we were trying to find out. It's a $400 value. I will be raffling that off to not to anyone, but the one person who I select from a raffle of the people who buy the all-day pass. So if you buy an all-day pass between now and March 31st, you will be entered in the drawing. The cool thing is you can book the room for Saturday night, you know, go see the movies, come back to your hotel, and, you know, sleep in downtown. I think it's kind of a nice staycation, especially if you're a movie buff, especially if you're an architecture buff. And we're actually going to get some sort of a discounted rate with a code, but that's coming down the way. In the meantime, I just wanted to say, encourage people to buy the all-day pass at nofestivalrequired.com. That's the website.
Very cool.
Thank
well,
you.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so many stories.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And thank you for carrying on Arizona. It's always wonderful to hear the things that you pick up as you wander around this great state. You know, I think probably what everybody doesn't understand is the most fun this thing has been is you and I talking before we did this thing about all the crazy stuff that we both know in this valley. So thank you as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you as well, and have a great rest of your night.
All righty. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Steve, thank you so much. That was really wonderful. And so now we are coming to From the Vault. And so, you know, I realized that who doesn't love food? And especially the fact that March is Women's Month. And so if you're ever down in Tucson and you drive by a place called Tumerica or La Chaiteria, you should stop, because the chef there is right now on the long list for best chef in the Southwest. And so I was lucky enough a couple weeks ago when I did a program down there to then have breakfast the next day at La Chateria, and it was really good. And so what I love is the fact that Arizona, when I was looking at the list of James Beard, which is kind of like the Oscars of food, it was like, I mean, there's Silvana, there's a handful of women who are consistently there. And so Wendy Garcia, who has Tumerico and La Chateria, you know, when I was in Tucson, my goal was to get Tumerica. Didn't realize La Chateria was one of her restaurants until I started researching. It's like, oh, that's where my friend wanted to go have breakfast. So that's where we went. So we have some amazing food across the state. and well worth it. So, all right. So now you'll see why I say you should share on Facebook if you're watching, that little white button, because we can have so much fun with Arizona history. And next week, I'm excited because we have Kurt Strawn. Now, if you don't know Kirk, so Walter Productions, Walter Dome, Walter Studios. We're going to talk about some of the history of some of those buildings and some of the history of Walter, probably getting into a bit of the Burning Man culture. So it's going to be a really fun episode with all kinds of cool things. And I'm intrigued to see what kind of cocktail we're going to come up with for that. So that will be next Thursday at 7 o'clock. You will definitely want to check that out. And, I love to hear from you all. So please, if you have suggestions for ideas, stories, or just comments, maybe you have a story. Maybe you know somebody who was actually in Song of the South or an extra or did something. Who knows? But, I just love that there's so much filming history. We could have showed for tonight the Walt Disney 1955 Nash commercial when they were up in Sedona. But, what we're going to end with today is that opening scene of Psycho back in 1960, where you think you're going to see, where people think they see the Westward Ho. It's actually the Heard building, because that's where the antenna was at the time. So, all right. So watch, and I will see you all next week.